Wouldn't it be great if you could ask your data anything at any time? Like, how are sales this quarter? How's the new marketing campaign performing? What does the overall health of the company look like? And actually get answers right away with charts and graphics and actionable information. You can with Domo's AI and data products platform. Domo lets you channel AI and data quickly, securely, and innovatively to deliver measurable insights wherever and whenever you need them. Anyone on your team can use Domo to easily prepare, analyze, visualize, automate, and distribute data, all amplified by AI. Domo goes beyond productivity. It's designed to transform your processes, helping you make smarter and faster decisions and drive real growth. All powered by Domo's trust, flexibility, and years of expertise in data and AI innovation. The world's best companies rely on Domo to make smarter decisions. See how Domo can help transform yours. Learn more at ai.domo.com. That's ai.domo.com.
The Agile Brand.
Welcome to Season 6 of the Agile Brand, where we discuss marketing technology and customer experience trends, insights, and ideas with enterprise and technology platform leaders. We focus on the people, processes, data, and platforms that make brands successful, scalable, customer-focused, and sustainable. This is what makes an Agile brand. I'm your host, Greg Kihlstrom, advising Fortune 1000 brands on MarTech, marketing operations, and CX, best-selling author and speaker. The Agile Brand podcast is brought to you by TEKsystems, an industry leader in full-stack technology services, talent services, and real-world application. For more information, go to teksystems.com. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know that my latest book, Priority is Action: 7 Principles for Better Strategies, Decisions, and Outcomes, is now available. In it, I give ideas and insights for leaders and teams that need to make meaningful progress on their priorities. After all, our priorities are what we do, not what we say we'd like to do. You can find Priority is Action on Amazon or learn more on my website, gregkihlstrom.com. Now let's get on to the show. We are here at PegaWorld Inspire at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, and we've been seeing some amazing things, hearing some amazing things, including how AI can transform the enterprise. And I know I've gotten the chance to be hands-on at the Innovation Hub as well, so we'll talk about a few things related to that too. Digital transformation is often seen as an overwhelming challenge, and stats certainly confirm not only this, but also that starting a transformation does not always mean it will end successfully. Understanding how to implement change gradually can be key, and more effectively using data to drive decisions can help as well. Returning to the show today is Tommi Marsans, Associate Director of Marketing Technology Strategy at Verizon Business, who is going to share some insights here and talk through a bunch of topics here. So first, Tommi, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, looking forward to talking about this with you, and always great to see you as well. So for those that didn't catch the last show you were on, do you mind just giving us a little background on yourself and your role at Verizon Business?
Sure, yeah. So about 5 years ago, I was tagged to develop CDH and decisioning for Verizon Business. We'd been already doing it on the consumer side, and so I was asked to do it on the business side. I launched that in about 6 months. It didn't take me too long to launch the first use case. Prior to that, for 30-odd years, I've been working in marketing operations, mainly CRM implementations and traditional B2C marketing.
Yeah, great. So a lot of what we've been hearing at PegaWorld is, well, we've been hearing a lot. There's a lot to learn, but there's a lot around data-driven decision making and just the power of that and the power of that done effectively. In your experience, this kind of takes a mindset shift, right? There's a lot of people that may not be the first way of thinking, right? That they come to. How have you found? How do you transition to this way of thinking more data driven?
So I think there are two groups that need to kind of shift their paradigm. One is marketers, right? They've traditionally had segment-based, time-based, offer-based marketing, right? Send something out, hopefully you get a 1% response rate. This is a very different mindset for them. And to understand the concept, they have to be a little more technical. So the new marketer really has to understand technology, how to leverage it, and how their customers expect to be interacted with. From the technical side, they have to become more marketing savvy. They have to become more business savvy. So, kind of gone are the days of IT and marketing doing two separate things. They really are starting to become one and the same. And, lucky for me, that's what I've been doing a lot of my career. But that's really what the new marketer and the new developer have to look like.
Yeah. So, data is kind of the glue, so to speak, between marketing and IT then. How do teams work? So, one is like the individual's mindset of like being more data driven and relying less on anecdotal, and we did that last year and it seemed to work or whatever. But the other part is like, how do teams work together in this data driven environment?
That's the key. They have to work together. So it's a collaboration. Yeah. You're never going to get a marketer who completely understands all of the technology, and you're not going to get a technologist who completely understands all of the marketing. Marketing is really complex. Products, offers, competitive advantage, macro and microeconomics. There's just so much going into marketing. And then technology is very specialized. So they really do have to come together and have a conversation, and it's a little push and pull, right? Traditionally, it's been more at odds, and one will win or the other will win. Now it really has to be a collaboration or it doesn't work at all.
Yeah. And I think, to me, collaboration, that seems like a win-win. Again, maybe muscles need to be exercised that hadn't been used a lot. But have you seen any unexpected side benefits or unexpected benefits from this way of collaborative working?
Absolutely, especially in the digital space. So as digital marketers become more familiar with some of the technologies, and the technologists become a little more familiar with the digital space and customer experience, that's really where it's come together. I think where there's more traditional, person-to-person kind of communication, that's a little harder. But in digital, really, they start speaking the same language. And the magic that comes from that is IT will bring the art of the possible, and marketing will gobble that up and come up with ideas about how to use it.
Yeah. And so, the term breaking down silos, so cliched and yet still true, right? Doesn't make it inaccurate. Does this help with that? First of all, collaborating through data and having kind of a common source of truth. What does that do in terms of existing silos?
So I think if you have silos within your organization, you need to break them down now, or they'll be broken down for you. I don't think there's a choice. I think that's where we're going. And I think technologies, especially like Pega, that are more of a service and less of kind of application, these kinds of technologies really demand that collaboration. In itself, this kind of layer cake that Alan talked about demands that technology and users, whether they're marketers or sales or whatever, really just kind of let go of the reins a little bit and builds the bridge between the two. And so I think there's going to be more room for technologies like this that do that bridge, because inherently we've got spaghetti bowls of data. We've got applications on applications. We've got traditional marketers that are doing segment marketing. We've got database marketers. We've got digital marketers. So all of this is, if you don't coordinate this and you don't have some sort of centralized hub or some centralized service or centralized view of the customer, you're just going to quickly be obsolete.
Yeah, well, and then flipping that from the customer view, customers have never cared how organizations are structured, right? So, using a tool like Pega, next best action approaches and things like that, that is, from my perspective, that is truly customer first and customer centric, which seems like it would dictate that there should not be all these siloed channels and teams and stuff. So how does that work in in practice, from a customer angle? Do you start from internal? Do you start from the customer, like when you're planning something?
You really have to start from the customer perspective, because you're absolutely right. Customers no longer, they don't care. Yeah. They don't care whether it's marketing or the digital team. They don't care if it's billing. They don't care if it's service. They could really care less, if you're not talking to each other. And even if you have two brands within one company, they kind of don't care about that either. So you really have to start from the customer perspective. I don't think I've seen a single presentation or had a single conversation while I've been here that said anything about your company. It's always been about your customer. And so, you really do have to start from, where is the customer pain point? Where do they get stuck? Where are there a lot of hands? And where's a lot of time spent? And that's going to cause friction for the customer. And that's what you want to relieve. Sometimes your customer will be an internal customer, but really you have to start from their perspective.
Wouldn't it be great if you could ask your data anything at any time? Like, how are sales this quarter? How's the new marketing campaign performing? What does the overall health of the company look like? And actually get answers right away with charts and graphics and actionable information. You can with Domo's AI and data products platform. Domo lets you channel AI and data quickly, securely, and innovatively to deliver measurable insights wherever and whenever you need them. Anyone on your team can use Domo to easily prepare, analyze, visualize, automate, and distribute data, all amplified by AI. Domo goes beyond productivity. It's designed to transform your processes, helping you make smarter and faster decisions and drive real growth, all powered by Domo's trust, flexibility, and years of expertise in data and AI innovation. The world's best companies rely on Domo to make smarter decisions. See how Domo can help transform yours. Learn more at ai.domo.com. That's ai.domo.com.
So you use the term center out. That's something definitely those familiar with Pega have heard before. But for those a little bit less familiar, what does that mean to the marketer? How is that different maybe than things that they might be familiar with?
So again, in kind of traditional marketing, it's very product and offer driven, right? We want to identify the people who will buy this thing. And that's not where we are anymore. Customers absolutely expect I love the word bespoke, a very bespoke experience. Whether it's a human or whether it's digital, they very much expect you to understand them, see them, and anticipate their need now. So that sort of central out approach is, I think it's spending a day in the customer's shoes. And at the end of the day, we're all customers of something. So we do have some reference point for that. But it used to be we kind of left that at the door, and we were trying to, I used to call it, I think I've used it before, you want to buy a watch? You just right. Have something that you're trying to fit into the market instead of letting the market dictate. The outcome of that is that the market is going to dictate what products work, what offers work. You no longer have control of that. And I think that's going to be a seismic shift. It's already happened, but I think as it bleeds into, well, what's the next best product for a company? That's going to be transformational, I think.
And so to get there, it's certainly even in smaller companies, but certainly in the enterprise, this doesn't happen all at once, right? So how do you look at, you mentioned a 6-month initiative, how do you look at, I guess, time to value, or, I don't know what there may be a million different KPIs, but, how do you look at starting and getting incremental value?
I think you start with where there's a lot of people involved, where there's a lot of level of effort or a lot of time involved. And then the easiest way to quantify that is to say, okay, how much time can we save and what's the labor cost for that? And then you can layer in opportunity costs. What else could we be doing with our time? What else could the customer be doing with their time? If the customer were delighted with that conversation, what else would they do? So those are kind of things that you can measure. And I mean, ideally, what you're after is a happy customer that's going to interact and buy more.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and it would seem there's learnings as well, right? I mean, part of this also is the feedback loop, right? And I think that's what gets lost a lot. again, even in very sophisticated organizations, there's such a drive to just move forward and keep doing stuff to move towards some strategic goal. So, how do you look at that feedback loop to determine not only, what to do next, but, when something's kind of ready to stop, continuous improvement or something like that?
So 20 years ago, there was no such thing as a marketing operations team, right? About 15 years ago, you started seeing sort of marketing operations start to pop up because technology started to become more available around CRM and around digital. I think now you're going to see a lot of organizations stand up CX teams so that they're really focused on the customer experience and not necessarily tied to a revenue goal, that their goal will really be customer sentiment. That's very hard to measure. And I think AI tools, Pega is one of them, can begin to get underneath the covers a little bit and understand that customer sentiment, because it is very elusive, which is why we haven't used it before, right? It's just hard to get to. Right. You can't get them to answer customer satisfaction surveys, or like 5% of them will do that, right?
Yeah.
And only if they're mad.
Right. So. Right. So, you mentioned AI, and we have to mention AI in every show. I think it's the rules these days. So, yeah. There's a lot of flavors of AI. So, many familiar with tools like Pega would be familiar with things like predictive and other things like that. But certainly generative AI is getting a lot of attention, not only the last couple of days here at this conference, but a lot of attention in general. What's your thoughts on, there's a lot of talk also about generative in creation of text-based, image-based, all of that, but a lot of what I've seen here is some really interesting things as far as generative applied to process and process improvement and things. Where do you see the biggest opportunity for generative?
So they talked a little bit about this in the keynote. Don talked a little bit about this, that generative AI initially was just very good at mimicking, very good at mimicking human behavior and human speech. We've gotten to a place where the internet's exploded with all of this information. We can't even process it all, right? It's changed who we are fundamentally as humans and how we deal with the world and interact with each other because of that onslaught of information. Leveraging that, using AI to leverage that in a way that can transform things that humans can't do because it's impossible for us to process that amount of information. What I think that begins to look like is augmented living. So it's not just marketing. It's not just how can I get one more dollar out of a human. It's augmentation in the way that we interact with the world. So we've got social media. I think that begins to break down a little bit as we have sort of generative AI. And I don't think we'll ever end up where we're just avatars, right? Living in a metaverse, right? But I think we'll have the ability to have the luxury of thinking about things at a higher level, and seeing things at a world view kind of, instead of incremental little things. So I could imagine that I've got my cell phone, and along the cell phone is, hey, these are the things that could make your life better today. We already have that. We have some apps that are like, take a minute, sit down, or, hey, you've been sitting down for 3 hours, stand up.
Right.
Right? That kind of augmented living, I think, is where we're going with generative AI, where it becomes very personal for us.
Yeah. And so applying that and at work as well, I mean, it would seem to do the same. I mean, I think what you're talking about, at least from my perspective, is it's machines doing what machines do best and humans doing what humans do best, right? And when we free up either, we get to, and again, from my perspective, better results. I think there's also some really interesting things with, we've been talking about personalization for years and years, right? As marketers, generative AI, to me, I get really excited about the opportunities there as well. Is tying things like propensity and the predictive stuff to generative AI. Now, one-to-one really starts to mean it's not just a pipe dream and stuff. It really becomes reality. What are your thoughts there?
I think, going back to the example of Blueprint, right? Yeah. You can be probably the world's best expert in something. You put it into Blueprint, and it has now gone out and surveyed, the entirety of the world's knowledge to give you something to start with. And I can't imagine that there's any scenario that it wouldn't look at and say, you didn't think of this one thing. Yeah. Right? And one thing that I've noticed, and this is particular to Blueprint, it has these little processes, like you do this and then that and then this and that, it's sort of these little steps. There's an icon that tells you what happens in that step. And occasionally there's a picture of a human, right? This is a human in the loop, right? I think a lot of those things could be automated as well. Yeah. So I think that's where we're going, is like layers of AI instead of just like one singular.
Yeah. I got a chance to play with I posed as a retail bank, and it was a credit card scenario. So yeah, very, very cool. And it also brings up this, when we're talking about putting the customer first and next best action, I think a lot of what organizations run into when they start, first of all, they may be orchestrating journeys in a very organizational, kind of back to the silos and the building things based on org charts, not based on customers. But there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes of even the best orchestrated journey, right? So I think something like Blueprint, which really, it gives you that literal blueprint of here's the processes, here's here's each step, and they even have API. There's all kinds of stuff for those listening that haven't gotten a chance to look at it yet. But I think where a lot of organizations get stuck, at least in my experience working with them, is when they start building these journeys and start thinking about, what could a next best action approach take. It's one thing to look at it from the customer journey. It's a whole other thing to think about, well, how do we actually orchestrate this internally, right? So kind of back to this incremental approach, is it an incremental, like, build on, you build one piece at a time and build? How do you think about like that end North Star goal that an organization could have? Is it just kind of built one block at a time, or,
I think it has to be iterative. I think you have to start with an MVP, and then, I think you can have a kind of a goal. It's not a North Star because that's too limiting. I think you kind of have an outcome that you want to get to. Maybe it's a credo, right? And then you work your way towards that. I kind of think of it as Marvel's multiverse, right? Yeah. Customers don't all start in the same place. And you got to pull them and nudge them. Yeah. And then they wander, and then you got to pull them and nudge them. And that, I think, is what the customer journey starts to look like.
Great. Well, one last question before we wrap up here. It's been a pretty amazing couple of days here. What's a highlight for you from the conference?
I would want to say that it has something to do with AI, but it really was the Black Pumas concert.
Nice. Hey. Nice. Awesome.
That and the networking opportunities, really, getting to have these kinds of conversations. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been great talking with you. Again, I'd like to thank Tommi Marsans, Associate Director of Marketing Technology Strategy at Verizon Business. You can learn more about Tommi and Verizon Business by following the links in the show notes. Thanks again for listening to The Agile Brand, brought to you by Tech Systems. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to subscribe and leave us a rating so that others can find the show more easily. You can access more episodes of the show at www.gregkihlstrom.com. That's GregKihlstrom.com. While you're there, check out my series of best-selling Agile Brand guides covering a wide variety of marketing technology topics, or you can search for Greg Kihlstrom on Amazon. The Agile Brand is produced by Missing Link, a Latina-owned, strategy-driven, creatively fueled production co-op. From ideation to creation, they craft human connections through intelligent, engaging, and informative content. Until next time, stay agile.
The Agile brand.